Hello again. Earlier today I spoke about hopes and fears, and tonight I'm going to say a bit more on that. This is Hopes and Fears Part 2, and I want to say something about the middle ground between hope and fear, or the space between hope and fear. But that'll come a bit later. I've got a few other things to say first. We take our hopes and fears very seriously, don't we? A bit like thoughts that I was talking about recently. We really take them quite seriously. We believe in them. We think that our fears are real, and we think, or we hope, that our hopes are real as well. So, which is the most true? Our hopes or our fears? I guess we would prefer to take our hopes as being the most true. We'd rather believe in our hopes than in our fears, I think. Because, well, the hopes are more positive, aren't they? Are they? Is hope any more positive than fear? Neither are really grounded in our actual experience, are they? As I think I pointed out earlier, they're to do with the future. So I don't think hope is any more positive than fear. It's just that we prefer it. And I think that when we get really hopeful about something, maybe we get a bit excited or a bit elated about it. And I think this elation can lead, well, it could be quite tiring actually to be elated on a sort of high about something. It's not really sustainable. We can't sustain that energy for too long. I think that kind of excitable elation that is just hung on these hopes which don't have any foundation. And fears, if we hang on to our fears too much, take our fears as being true, then that can become overwhelming, and that can lead to the opposite of elation, which is depression. So when we're elated, we have this kind of excitable, active sort of energy. And when we're depressed, we have very little, or perhaps hardly any energy at all. So neither our hopes or our fears are in any sense true or real. They're rather like the wind. When the wind blows hope in our direction, that's what we feel. We feel hope. We feel hopeful about things. We feel that things are okay. But then what happens? The wind changes. And when the wind blows fear in our direction, then that's what we feel. We feel fear. So our hopes and fears, they're not grounded in anything. They're like the wind. So one moment we're inflated with elation by the winds of hope, and the next thing we're flattened by depression with the wind of fears. So this comparison to the wind may remind some of you of a teaching called the 8 worldly winds. And hopes and fears are very much connected with the 8 worldly winds. But I'm not really going to go into the worldly winds today. I might do that next time. I've got a few other things to say before doing that. So I may do a part 3 talk tomorrow or something on the 8 worldly winds. So the wind is insubstantial, isn't it? We feel, or it's insubstantial in as much as we can't see it and we can't hold it, but we certainly feel its effects. And hopes and fears are just like this. There's nothing really there that we can grab hold of and say this is hope and this is fear. but yet we feel the effect of the hopes and the fears, don't we? We feel the effect very much, and we take them rather too seriously. So is there such a thing as a space between hope on the one hand and fear on the other hand? We need some kind of shelter from the wind, don't we? We need to get ourselves out of the wind, as it were, into some sheltered space. And as is always the case, mindfulness is going to provide that safe ground, that space in between hope and fear, where we've got shelter from the wind. And with mindfulness we get a sense of groundedness, so we're more stable, we're not blown around so much, we're not buffeted by the wind, and we can maybe come to a place of tranquility and sanity, get some kind of peace from these fears and hopes that bother us all of the time. And also we can apply some wisdom to it, can't we? Which is part of mindfulness, really. We see into our hopes and fears. We start to see that they are insubstantial. They're kind of wishful thinking in a way. They're not based on any firm, solid foundation. So this middle ground, this space between hopes and fears, it's a space of, or a place of equanimity. Now, what does equanimity mean? Well, I think I'm going to answer that really by saying what it's not. Equanimity is not the same as indifference. Indifference is where we don't really care about anything. We maybe prevent ourselves or protect ourselves from feeling anything at all. But equanimity is not like that. Equanimity is where we do feel things. We maybe feel things very strongly. It might be sadness or it might be joy. We feel things quite strongly, but we know that these are just Vedanas or felt sensations, and we're not thrown off balance by them. So we maybe feel the wind in a similar way to how a tree experiences the wind, but the tree trunk remains stable. It maybe moves slightly in the breeze, in the wind. Sometimes trees can move quite alarmingly in the wind, but they're not put out of balance, so they feel the effects of the wind, but they're not thrown over. Well, in extreme cases they are. But that's another thing, really. So I think with the practice of mindfulness, we can learn not to welcome our hopes and not to fight our fears. Because that's what we do, isn't it? We tend to welcome the hopes, saying, great, there's some hope here, there's something I can hang on to. And when our fears arise, we want to fight them and push them away. Well, I think that welcoming hope like that is really like trying to hold on to the wind. And fighting fear is like trying to push the wind away. Neither work, both are futile efforts, both are a waste of energy, really. But we all experience them, don't we? I mean, I experience hopes and fears as well. But what I try and do is to see them for what they are, which actually is nothing very substantial. Not so easy to do, but mindfulness, as ever, is the key. So I'll leave it there for today, and I may well do something on the worldly winds in the next day or two. Bye for now.